So of course, you're very excited because there's another Nick Drake album to listen to, released in 1971. So we're in 1971. We have just listened to Five Leaves Left, and we and 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 we now we put on the next album, Bryter Layter, and it starts off with an introduction, which is only about a minute long. It's really nice. It's really good, a good instrumental piece. But while we're listening to the introduction, we're thinking, well, we have just listened to Five Leaves Left. How can Bryter Layter possibly top that? And while you're thinking about that, this song is over, and the album starts with Hazy Jane number 2. And that's the moment you realize you're wrong, because Bryter Layter is fantastic. Hazy Jane is a thrilling up-tempo, one of my favorite songs on this album. It's absolutely amazing, and it deals with the question, how do you deal with rough life? How do you deal with city life when everything is happening around you? And how can you develop yourself? How can you do well? And because he's asking these questions in the lyrics, and then in the fourth verse and in the chorus, or in the fifth verse, he's actually, well, giving you the answer. And these lyrics are very poetic, and it's really nice, and the vocals are amazing too. So we get, hey, take a little while to grow your brother's hair. Now take a little while to make your sister fair. And now that the family is part of the chain, take off your eye shade and start over again. So it's like, basically, make sure your family life is in order. Make sure you have a good relationship with your family. And then now take a little while to find your way in here. Now take a little while to make your story clear. And now that you're lifting your feet from the ground, weigh up your anchor and never look down. So, take a little while to find your way in here. You know, you're living your life and having some success. I hope you're doing your best, and then your story life is becoming a little bit more clear. You know, you can maybe advise or help other people and take on more responsibility, more difficult tasks as you go along. And it's such helpful advice in some ways if you listen to this song. These lyrics are really good. And then at the end of the song, Nick Drake writes a verse about the fact that if he could articulate himself just as well as he could write these lessons down, he would still be together with his girl with his ex-girlfriend. So it kind of ends in a funny way. And then we get the next song, At the Chime of a City Clock, which basically deals with the same subject matter, I think. It's a very old poetic story. I really like it, and I really like the chorus. But at the chime of a city clock, put up your roadblock and hang on to your crown. For a stone in a tin can is wealth for the city man who leaves his armor down. And I think this also is just a very cryptic piece of advice in some ways, because you have at the chime of a city clock, when everything gets really rough and you have to, when city life gets really rough, hang on to your crown. So hang on to yourself in some cliched way, you know, just make sure you're doing okay. Because a stone in a tin can, a good man is wealth to a city man who leaves his armor down. So if you do all right, you're gonna get rewarded if you live in a good society. You know, a city man who leaves his armor down. I think that's what it means. I really like looking at these lyrics in that kind of way. And then we get One of These Things First. And this is also about potential in some ways, because he's thinking about, it's about the future. One of these things first. It's one of the more well-known Nick Drake songs right now, and it's about the future. It's about all the things that you could be and finding out that it's actually really difficult to achieve your goals. So you only wish you had been one of these things first. You know, it's you want to know that you're actually able to achieve goals in general, and so this album is really about development in some ways. And then we get Hazy Jane 1, and here he actually tries to have a relationship, I think, and trying to be a good partner, because that was one of those things that he wanted to be in the previous song. But in Hazy Jane number 1, he actually is trying to do his best, but it's really difficult. I really love the song. I think the melody is great, and I think this is a perfect way to end side A, because, you know, he's trying to make something out of himself, I think, the character in this album, but it's not that easy. And then side A is over, and we start side B with an instrumental again, the title track of this album, Bryter Layter. And this has got to be one of my favorite instrumental songs of all time, in my opinion. The melody is great. The arrangements are perfect. The arrangements are quite different on Bryter Layter than on the previous album, 5 Leaves Left. Here it's a little bit more. It's even more accessible. It's very beautiful. That's a good way to describe it, I think. And we listened to Bryter Layter, absolutely loving it. And in my mind, this is the part where, well, where, you know, where the character is busy making something of himself, you know. And then we get Fly, and that's really an emotional song, because he basically screams that he needs a second chance. Things aren't going the way he wanted to go, so he needs a second chance. I think that's what the song is about. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous. I've never heard something like this song, or like these songs on this album as a whole. And then we get 2 songs, the first being Poor Boy, which is an absolute perfect but unhappy song. The arrangements are very uplifting in some weird way. It's absolutely beautiful, but the lyrics are very pathetic. You know, he's basically feeling sorry for himself. That is what the lyrics explore. And so, yeah, things are not looking good. But then we get Northern Sky, which deals with the polar opposite subject matters than Poor Boy. So it kind of looks like he asks for a second chance with the song Fly, and then he kind of explores these 2 different outcomes that may happen. You know, it may go completely wrong, like it did with Poor Boy, or it goes really right with Northern Sky. Northern Sky is my favorite Nick Drake song of all time, period. There's a real magic to this song. It's a love song, I think. It always gives me chills, goosebumps. It's absolutely fantastic, and it's hard to explain how much I love this song. Well, you see this man here. That's a picture I really like, by the way, from Stanley Kubrick. This is Stanley Kubrick, and Stanley Kubrick is one of my favorite movie directors of all time. He has directed movies like released movies like Barry Lyndon, Space Odyssey, Eyes Wide Shut, The Shining, which is pretty famous, A Clockwork Orange, and I basically love all of his movies, so to speak. The Killing to Eyes Wide Shut, I think they're all fantastic. Eyes Wide Shut is probably my favorite movie of all time, at least now it is. And I was watching a documentary about Stanley Kubrick, and you know, you got fragments of every movie in there, and it tells his whole story. And the documentary was over, and I was really beat, tired, because I normally am after a Stanley Kubrick movie, because it's really intensive. It asks a lot of you, you know. And I always like to put on a little bit of music after a movie. But it's hard to find the song perfect enough to fit these great movies and this fantastic documentary. But I put on Northern Sky and it worked absolutely amazing, because there's something very magical about his movies, and there's something very magical about Nick Drake with Northern Sky. Yeah, that's the only way I can really explain how much I love this song. And then the album, this perfect album, ends with another instrumental called Sunday. And then the album is over.